Hey artists! Today we're going to learn how to finger weave. This is the result of finger weaving and it can be used for lots of different things. I've seen kids turn it into a necklace or a bracelet or a mini scarf. Let's get started. Today when I weave, I need 3 supplies. I need a pair of scissors, I need a skein of yarn, and I need my hand. You'll notice on my hand I wrote some words. These words are to help you learn the parts of the hand and the different fingers. You will not write these words on your hand. This is my thumb, my pointer finger, my middle finger, my ring finger, and my pinky. When I get started weaving, first I need to look at my skein of yarn and find the good tail and the bad tail. My skein of yarn might have some paper on it, and that's okay. I see 2 tails of the yarn here. My good tail is the tail that comes from the middle of one end of my yarn. The good tail is the tail that I'm going to use. The bad tail is the tail I'm going to leave alone. I'm not going to touch it, I'm not going to pull it, I'm not going to use it. So I'm going to turn my yarn this direction so the good tail is facing out so I don't get confused. I'm going to take the end of my yarn and pinch it between my thumb and the side of my hand. I'm going to pull enough yarn out much that goes down to my elbow. That's about how much I need. And I'm going to wrap this yarn around my thumb. I'm keeping my yarn pinched between my thumb right here so it doesn't come out. And I can just kind of squeeze this little piece in there. I can release a little bit so that my yarn wraps around my thumb. After I have a few wraps, I notice that the yarn holds itself in place, and I can wrap that yarn around my thumb. I'm wrapping it loosely so that I have a little bit of slack, a little bit of give right here. I don't want it too tight or my thumb, it might turn different colors right here, and that's what I don't want. I'll know that I'm ready when I have my skein of yarn and my yarn wrapped around my thumb. The first thing I'm going to do is take my yarn with my other hand. Oh, by the way, I am putting my yarn on my weak hand, and the weak hand is my hand that I do not write with. This is the hand that I write with. I write with my right hand. I'm going to put my yarn on my left hand so I can use my right hand to do all of the work. So I have my yarn wrapped around my left thumb, and I'm going to hold the rest of the yarn in my right hand, and I'm going to put it behind my pointer finger, in front of my middle finger, between my ring and my middle, going behind my ring finger, and over my pinky. Let me show you that again. Behind my pointer, over my middle, behind my ring, in front of my pinky. Then I'm going to go back. Behind my pinky, in front of my ring, behind my middle, in front of my pointer. I basically did the opposite of what I did the first time. Let me show you again. Behind my pointer, in front of my middle, behind my ring, in front of my pinky. Now I'm going to go opposite. Behind my pinky, in front of my ring, behind my middle, in front of my pointer. So I have 1 loop on each hand. Now I'm going to go down to my pinky and back again. I'm going to weave in between each of my fingers, in front of my middle, behind my ring, in front of my pinky. Oh, I see my yarn is getting tight, so I need to pull a little bit out. Now I'm going to go back behind my pinky, in front of my ring, behind my middle, in front of my pointer. I'll know that I've done it correctly when I have 2 loops on each finger. Let me show you one more time and then we'll do it together. To take it off, I'm going to pinch my thumb to my hand and just pull the yarn off. So to start, I have my yarn wrapped around my thumb and I'm pinching it to my hand. I'm going to take the rest of my yarn, my good tail, and wrap it behind my pointer, over my middle, behind my ring, in front of my pinky. I'm going to go back behind my pinky, in front of my ring, behind my middle, and in front of my pointer. After 1 round, I have 1 loop. I need 2 loops on each hand, so I'm going to do it one more time. In front of my middle, behind my ring, in front of my pinky. Behind my pinky, in front of my ring, behind my middle, in front of my pointer. Now I have 2 loops on each finger. Let's do it together. Pinch your thumb to your hand. Take the rest of your yarn, the good tail, and put it behind your pointer, over your middle, behind your ring, and over your pinky. So right now I should see a loop on top of my middle and on top of my pinky down here in the crease of my hand. My pointer and my ring are empty. If your pointer has a loop over it, you did it wrong, so try again. I'm going to go behind my pinky, in front of my ring, behind my middle, in front of my pointer. If I close my hand, I see that I have a loop on each finger. I need 2 loops on each finger, so I'm going to go down and back again. Over my middle, behind my ring, over my pinky, around my pinky, over my ring, behind my middle, over my pointer, and now I have 2 loops on each finger. Now it's time to start the actual weaving part. To start the actual weaving part, I'm going to take the bottom loop, lift it up, bend my finger, push my finger through the loop, and push the loop off. So now I just have 1 loop. I'm going to lift the bottom loop, bend my finger, put my finger through the loop, and push the loop off. I just have 1 loop on my finger. Lift the loop, bend my finger, push it off. Lift the loop, bend my finger, and push it off. Now I need to get my loops down to the crease of my hand. I could just push them down like this, but I like to take my hand and kind of move them all down at the same time. Now I just do it again. I already have 1 loop on each finger, but I need 2. So I'm going to take my yarn, go across my pointer, behind my middle, across my ring, and over my pinky, behind my pinky. Need to pull some slack here. Over my pinky, behind my ring, in front of my middle, and now I have 2 loops on each hand. My next step is to lift that bottom loop, bend my finger, and push it off. Lift the loop, bend my finger, push it off. Lift the loop, bend my finger, and push it off. Lift the loop, bend my finger, and push it off. Move the loops down to the crease of my hand and start again. So now I can turn my hand over and I can see how my weaving is beginning to form. When I get about this much, I can pull the yarn off of my thumb. And if I pull that bottom piece of yarn tight, it will not come apart, but it will start to form my finger weaving. And then I can keep going. When it's time to be done, this is what I do. First, I make sure that that yarn is off of my thumb, and I pull my weaving tight. Then I take my scissors and I want to measure from my hand about down to my elbow, and I want to cut the yarn off of the skein. Now I'm done with the skein. Next thing I do is I take the loop off of my pinky and I put it onto my ring finger. I was very careful and I held on to that loop. If I let that loop go, my weaving might fall apart. Now I need to move these 2 loops over to my middle finger. So I'm making sure that I have a good grip on them before I take them off of my finger. I'm just pinching them between my other 2 fingers, lifting them off and putting them on my middle finger. Now I'm going to take the loop off of my pointer finger and put it onto my middle finger. Again, making sure that I held on tightly. Now I have 4 loops, 1, 2, 3, 4 loops on my middle finger. I'm going to find that piece of yarn that I just cut off of the skein, not the tail that was on my thumb. I want this piece of yarn that came off of the skein. I'm going to make sure I can lift these loops up so they're kind of loose and I can put my finger through it, my 4 loops. I'm going to take this loop that I just cut off of the skein, this yarn I cut off of the skein, and move that yarn through the loops so it kind of looks like this. I'm going to pull it tight. Then I can pull the loops off of my middle finger, pull this tight, pull this tight, and there I have my finger weaving. And that is how we finger weave.